analysis of the situation. Now we try to find a step ahead, to find some solution. We will be focused on how to reform the institutions of the old world order, to face in a better way these radical changes, this crisis. I always say that in 2019, and it was a very wonderful year, 2019, but we didn't know it at that time. Now we know it. In 2019, it was impossible to figure that we would have to wear a mask or to discuss about a nuclear war as a concrete option, or that the temperature of the air conditioning could become a political issue. We had to adapt ourselves as citizens, and now it's time for the institutions to adapt as well. I'm happy to ask questions and not to give answers, because I know that the issues are quite complicated. So let's start with our starting point, the concept paper prepared by Vision. Francesco Grillo, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roberto. Okay, briefly, because we are talking about a concept paper of 21 pages that you all already read, because it was a requirement for joining the conference. Probably I would only concentrate on the very last section of this concept paper, which is on the very meta question, no, of the systems. As a management consultant, McKinsey management consultant, I would call what we are talking about. So the holy grail of treaty change. And here, the title of the last section of the concept paper was a sort of agreed with Giuliano Amato, who was the mastermind of the previous attempts to change treaties in 2004 and then in 2006. And the subtle doctor told me that probably this idea of moving from flexible geometries to cluster of integration could be a right one. Of course, it's not at all self-explaining what cluster of integration mean, but this is a possible attempt to respond to the question that among many others, Romano Prodi was putting forward this morning. How do we move now, not to overcome the gridlock? So basically, the idea is that Kalypso will certainly object, disagree, but basically, well, the 4 points. Number one, even Giuliano Amato thinks that, quite obviously, he thinks that, and I think, we think, as Vision, very much that we should continue to have aggregation around different aggregation, not different speeds. It's a different concept altogether. Different aggregation around different policies. However, each of these integration should be much more complete, no? So in other words, to have a Schengen area, an area of free circulation, where still every member state decides its own COVID-19 related restriction, makes no sense whatsoever. It's possibly even suboptimal to have no circulation area in that very specific moment where we have a pandemic. To have a single market where everybody decides its own taxation on companies and individuals is probably, again, suboptimal. So the idea is to have a cluster of integration, which are more complete, probably with fewer member states. Number two, this is the provocation very much that Immanuel Kant raised on the 9th of May in Strasbourg. This very idea of the European political community that Maria sort of is afraid of. We should probably even have a plan B of doing this integration, new integration. This is the provocation that Immanuel Kant did not push that much forward, because he didn't say, no, I was meaning that very thing, But probably we still need to have a plan B where if to change treaties demonstrates to be impossible, at least not compatible with the time that we are living, we may even consider to create new aggregation with whoever is willing to join. Probably it's too much, but it is a provocation that Immanuel Kant made a few weeks ago, and that we think it's worthwhile to think about. Number three, and I know that Roberto Castaldi, who is here, and the Federalists are very much in favor of this idea. We should have a referenda, or at least before Kalypso disagrees strongly. We should have some way to ask citizens of different member states if they agree or not to have this fuller marriage, no? So not an Italian marriage like in the 60s, but a more serious integration. Roberto's idea, I don't know where is Roberto, is that we probably may have two referenda. The first to be held in each of the countries that agree to have a fuller integration, and the second only in the member states that do not approve the referenda in the first place. But again, one very something which is worthwhile to think about is that, as Giuliano Amato agrees, nowadays we want to have a fuller integration. We need to engage citizens much more, not only with referenda, but also with many other instruments that we are going to discuss in Working Group 3. Number 4, we need a mechanism for divorce. If we do not want to have the Italian marriage of the 60s, we also want to have a mechanism for both member states to go out with some cost, with some predetermined mechanism, but also for the partners to say to some member state, or a member state which is not complying, if you please, can go into a different, less committing kind of integration. So we need to have a mechanism for flexibility. So because otherwise, marriage which are too rigid, too much based on the rhetoric of love forever, tend to deteriorate into something which is not very pleasant. So these are the 4 provocation. We very much know that are provocation, but if Romano Prodi is right that we need to invent something, we need to invent something new.
When you announced the provocation, I was expecting a proposal to abolish the monthly movement of the parliament to Strasbourg, but I know it's too much. Well, let me introduce the other panelists. Kalypso Nicolaidis.
You want immediately to lose my job?
No, I mean, there is a headquarters in Brussels. It could be useful for everyone. Kalypso Nicolaidis, Sandro Gozi, Maria Joao Rodrigues. Let's start with Kalypso Nicolaidis. And I would like to start with the elephant in the room. which is unanimity, the abolition of unanimity that requires unanimity. So it's something that we have to forget. The mechanism of unanimity, if you
Just
like.
on this question.
Well, we have a discussion.
Okay.
I'm used to ask questions. So
Okay. And well, I'll disappoint you because
you have a speech and you prefer to.
No, well, I did think of a speech, but I mean, well, I'll say it
I mean,
here and there. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
And indeed,
And of course, if I may, this could be a broader discussion. So if you want to join us with suggestions or questions, don't wait for the end of the session and just raise your hands and we will find an opportunity.
actually, I'll get up being a small person. And Francisco, it's been a pleasure working with you over the years. Wonderful, wonderful to all brainstorm together. And of course, you all understand that you know, it's sometimes women need to A, stand up, B, speak up, and all the rest of it. And indeed, I was going to start my, I'm getting to your question, but we had a really interesting beginning with the two Franciscos, Prati and Brio, with the man on the moon. And I was going to start by simply asking us to deconstruct this title, guys, girls, women, because a man on the moon, I liked it when Antonio said that the man must not be alone. And I agree, you know, we agree, don't we? Not only, you know, there needs to be a few, you know, women around, but in fact, they need to have more power. In fact, they need to have power. We need a feminine EU and a feminine foreign policy. And so that would be my first point about the man on the moon provocation. And indeed, to that, I would add more young people shadowing what every older man and woman does in Brussels. Wouldn't that be great to have reverse membership everywhere in Brussels? That would be nice, more than the man on the moon. More than the man on the moon, animals on the moon. What we're talking about today is Europe waking up to the coffee that this is the era of planetary politics. And planetary politics is about a cosmopolitics of life, as some of us old hippies like to say, but life, you know, life in every sense of the word. And we know that, but it's not so easy to actually do it. And I really do think that young people, my students, our kids, everyone, they live it in their flesh, life, rather than the man on the moon. So can we adapt our title to that? But guys, we're going to still leave you a place on the moon. We're very inclusive, us, you know, young and women and all the rest of it. The moment, you know, is Europe a moment? Europe is a journey, and perhaps we shouldn't hype ourselves up all the time. You know, a moment. This is the moment. I mean, how many times have we said this is the moment? Yes, there is war in Ukraine and it's terrible, but we are on a journey. The manifesto indeed says it very well, Francisco, a moral obligation to adapt institution to the new context, etc. That is what I call in my work transformative fidelity. We have to have loyalty to what Europe has always been about. I'm a good old conservative person, doesn't look like it right now, but I am. So transformative fidelity is what we're after, not a revolution, not a moment, not a Hamiltonian moment, nor should we have US envy. So let's stop about Hamiltonian moment, but that's just my take. And indeed, the coffee at EUI, where I chaired the Democracy Forum, we followed with great passion the Conference on the Future of Europe. And that conference is not an end moment. We are just at the beginning of the end with the Conference on the Future of Europe. Whether it's going to be a convention or not, treaty change or not, but the process, the genie is out of the bottle. That's what we should talk about. We'll continue to talk about it in the afternoon in all sorts of different moments. And finally, the moon. And I'd like to get into your question. The moon. We should not aim at landing somewhere at Europe. Europe should not have a teleology. In constitutional theory, we say that constitutions or texts or, you know, grand plans set in stone are a way that the dead tie the hands of the living. We'll tie the hands of the living in 20 years' time. We will all probably, 3/4 of us in this room will be dead in 30 years' time. Will we have tied the hands of the living of our children? We shouldn't. So we should always see Europe as a journey that is constantly changing and adapting. And you're saying this, Francisco, and I think the concept paper, what we're trying to do today, is about really imagination, you know, and COVID was a lot about imagination because we had to live in our head. We had to reinvent what is space, what is ownership. You know, ownership and citizenship of Europe, which is what we're talking about, starts in our imagination. Democracy starts in our imagination, where we each imagine that we are the author of our common destiny. It's easier said than done. What we said in the first panel is true. Citizens do not imagine themselves sitting in Brussels, being the author of European destinies. They don't. And it starts in the mind. And so that brings me back indeed. And so the moon is about imagination because the moon is a circle. One of my advocacy with my students is to talk about a politics of circles. Circles as agora, but also circular economy, circular migration, circular democracy. We are inventing in Europe a language of circles. And so that's why the moon is super appropriate, which brings me all the way back to your question about veto. I have a whole list of other points, but I'll make them later. Or else you're going to stop me in a second. The veto. I will disappoint you, Francesco. Yes, it was a provocation. And no, I'm not against doing away with the veto, at least in many, and probably in foreign policy. What I spoke pretty passionately against is the obsession of the veto, because there are Brussels obsession. We are a bubble. I can tell you that, and you all know this as well as I do. When you talk with your families, your neighbors, you know, real people, let's remember the real people. Do they obsess, like they wake up in the morning, oh my God, we've got to get rid of the veto? No, there are many other things they obsess about. I call this in a kind of academic language proxies. The first biggest proxy for getting rid of the veto is giving the veto to the citizens. That is, the more we do things up in Brussels, and I'm all for centralizing more, health, defense, etc. That's what we're going to talk about. Yes, up. More up doesn't mean only, sorry, Sandro, only more power to the parliament to balance it. It also means more power to the parliament. Absolutely, European and national, absolutely. So I'm not speaking against that. I'm just saying that more up also means going all the way down. The more we do in Brussels, the more we need to consult the citizens. And the other precondition, the kind of Hegelian condition of possibility, go up, you go down, and you go up, you go horizontal. So democracy in Europe is also about connecting citizens across countries. And if that's the case, then, you know, participatory democracy, referenda, I'm all for referenda, because when you do pan-European referenda, people start talking more with each other. So our Europe needs to be a Europe where normal people, not just us, talk to each other all the time, media, etc., etc. That's the key. And that means that the veto, yes, is an issue. That, I mean, I think if, and it's true what Stephen said earlier, pushing back against me, was absolutely true. Stephen, I totally agree with you. And in fact, pour avoir des idées propres, il faut en changer comme de chemise. Donc, je suis toujours contente de changer d'avis. But I'm not quite changing. Yes, absolutely. It creates very bad dynamics when one country can hold hostage the whole of the EU on all of the topics we care about, and we all know what we're talking about. But that's not the be-all and end-all. We can do so much else in foreign policy, including democratizing foreign policy, including small groups, including constructive abstention, including when we implement using majority voting, etc., etc. You know, we all know this stuff, and we can do it. So all I'm saying is that when you look for the growl, giving away the veto, let's not obsess about it. Let's pursue it. But let's do all these other things and not lose sight of what we're really trying to do is to act together. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's true that common people is not obsessed with the veto because they know maybe a little about how the institutions work. But we have to remember that often the common opinion is Europe is doing nothing. So maybe sometimes finding some ways to make institutions more efficient could be a good proposals. Sandro Gozi, Macron's proposals to change the treaties was welcomed by 13 countries, if I'm right, with a no way. it is unconsidered, it is premature, and so on. So there is room for changing the treaties, or we have to find other ways to reform the Europe.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Francesco, for this another excellent initiative of vision here in Siena. This time I'm very happy that I made it physically, and I agree with Romano Prodi. We need to invent something, and it is time for founding daughters and sons. Do you like this?
I love it.
Okay. It is time for founding daughters and sons, and I think we have to turn the page without tearing it. That's a little bit the spirit with which we are working, as far as I'm concerned, as En Marche, as Renew, and this also was the spirit. But I'm not here to interpret the speech of Emmanuel Macron, but to give my comment to the speech of Emmanuel Macron and to his proposal also to modify the treaty. I mean, we have to turn the page without tearing it because we are in the post-pandemic, because the war is back in the European continent after 1992, after 30 years. We always forget that we had a war, bloody war, which I know as a very young diplomat in Bosnia-Herzegovina in Sarajevo. We come out, we speak also later, I'm sure, with Kalypso and others, out of a process without any precedent, which is the Conference of the Future of Union. But I won't dwell about that now. And we have to rethink the way we want to ensure peace and security and stability in our continent, and from our continent to project our power and our influence outside our continent. This is the issue. This is the issue that Emmanuel Macron has put on the table on the 9th of May, and this is the issue that we want to put on the table. It is clear that this must also, I say, turn the page without tearing it. That means that in the previous pages, there are some lessons that we have also to keep in mind. And the first lesson is that all Europe, Kalypso was talking about a journey. This journey has always been at variable density. This journey has always been en même temps, at the same time, in parallel, different approaches, different strategies, and different solutions for our continent. And so I do believe that this time, again, we have to do things in parallel. We don't need to choose. I agree with the fact that we need to push, and about the first proposal, for a dynamic, federative group of peoples and countries which have the sense of history more than others. You know, sense of history is like beauty, intelligence. I mean, you must more or less handsome, you must more or less intelligent, you may more or less have sense of history. And it's not because, you are elected that you are, I mean, perfectly fit to sense history. There are some leaders here in Europe with sense history, and there is the possibility of pushing ahead within the current context, institutional context, a group of willing countries, a group of Europe of free will. And I will seize on that, because in this moment, we do not want to oblige anybody to be in this dynamic group, federative group of countries and peoples, but we cannot accept that anybody blocks the group. So we have to do everything we can with political will, with institutional instrument to move ahead. It is clear that if you tell me what are the highest priority of this group, the highest immediate priority of this group are defense, energy, and to have a clout on the world scene, to have an influence on the world scene. These are the key issues for this, and it is absolutely possible. And we have to push them. We have to push them. Do we need to modify the treaty for this? Not necessarily. Do we want to modify the treaty? Yes, absolutely. And this is the second density. The second density is that even for those who think to be perfectly well off in this union of 27, where we do the single market, some common policies after all, because I mean, there are so many things that we don't do at 27, but we do at 19, 24, sometimes with non-EU members, look at Schengen. Okay, but in the EU 27, there are a few things that we have to modify, and we have to modify the treaty for this. If we want to be more effective on health issue, which is not an issue for the group of countries, it's an issue which concerns all the population in Europe, it is clear that we have to modify the treaty. It is clear. We cannot be effective in the future and more effective in the future in prevent and treat transnational diseases, prevention, research, etc., without modifying the treaty. And there is also the issue of veto. In my view, it is not the problem, but it is a problem, a substantial problem that we have to address. The citizens in the conference, these 800 women and men, of which 1/3 young people between 16 and 25 years old, totally ignored by the media, but that have done a serious job, and they need to be taken seriously in their conclusion, show a lot of common sense. We have a common project. We are 27. We have to decide everything by majority. We have to decide by unanimity only who is the next member of the club. When we enlarge the club, we want to all agree about the new member of the club. I think it's common sense. But once we are in the club must be fit for the purpose. So it is clear that on issues like health, but on other issues, I mean, there are so many blocks on migration. We need to modify the treaty. Why we need to get rid of the veto? Do we think that we would have the perfect world if we could decide everything by majority? No, but I can tell you, with a certain degree of experience, having worked in all the EU institutions, that the attitude of the negotiators since the very beginning fundamentally changed, whether they know they can decide by majority or whether they know they can decide by unanimity. It's fundamentally changed. So it's not the issue that, I mean, yeah, without veto, we will have a perfect world. No, without veto, we will oblige all the actors around the table to have a more constructive attitude. And then we will reach consensual decision, but we will know that everybody will have contributed. This is why the veto is important. The last point, and then I shut up, I'm sure that we'll come back if there is a second round, is the third dimension. I mean, Francesco was mixing up Emmanuel, Kant or Macron. I don't think that, I mean, it's still not yet. It's not yet at the perpetual peace, huh? But we'll see in the future. But I mean, it is clear that this also, if we do this, and we must do this, a dynamic group of countries, Europe of political will, Europe 27 reformed, more efficient union that we have, we can also play a role in reorganizing the continent, because the continent needs to be reorganized, because all the principles around which we have organized our coexistence since 1945 have been blown up, literally, unfortunately, blow up by Putin aggression of Ukraine. Principle of territorial integrity, respect of the borders, self-determination, freedom of people to decide the destiny. We know that also in other moments they have been violated. But today, I mean, the aggression of Putin is a frontal aggression towards this. So, I mean, in 1949, we have an answer, or 1951, to the Second World War, which was the Inter-European Organization, Council of Europe, Steel and Coal Community. When we enter into a new phase of the Cold War, we had another answer, the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe, which has become today the organization. We need today think out of the box. Are the organizations in the continent fit for the purpose? I don't think so. We need to fundamentally rethink the way outside the European Union, also the European Union, together with the other actors, can reorganize a peace, stability, and security. It is the job for the 10 years ahead of us. This is the job for the 10 years ahead of us. I mean, the group of countries now, the revision of the treaty is, I hope, between now and 2024. The other is the job for a decade. So we need a lot of bright ideas from you, Francesco, and from Bishop.
Maria Joao Rodrigues, if the revision of the treaties is so hard to solve, can we figure a further enlargement of the union with these rules, or is it feasible? And specifically with Ukraine, do we need a fast track for them, or just a partnership, enhanced partnership.
From being the last in the panel to speak, and so I will build on what my colleagues just said. You are putting the finger on the fundamental issue, which is how should we conduct enlargement, but also in more general terms, the organization of our continent. And look, we are discussing this in this particular moment where we know that we need to find a solution for the permanent dilemma of the European project, which is how can we have enlargement, but also deepening. It's not either or, it's both. We need both. And this is not easy, but it seems to me there is a way to go there. And let me underline that the Conference on the Future of Europe concluded in a moment where the implications of enlargement were not completely visible because the Ukraine war came a bit late. But I need to tell you something. I was part of the team making the final negotiation of the Lisbon Treaty. And when we conclude the task by rescuing the Constitutional Treaty, we knew that this treaty was already somehow outdated. We knew this. Because let me recall that the convention by that time was not given the time by the European Council to complete the task. Now it's even more outdated because the world is a completely different one, multipolar, and let's just refer to an argument. The digital is one you refer to this. You know that the word digital is not in the Lisbon Treaty. It's not even there. And we know that the digital transformation will transform everything. It's transforming everything. And we know that there is no possibility for real European sovereignty if there is no digital sovereignty. So with just this argument, I can already illustrate, among other reasons, why in fact this Lisbon Treaty is outdated. That said, the Conference on the Future of Europe was clear by saying, let's use the potential of the treaty because there are many measures which can be implemented under this treaty, but let's also open the discussion on treaty revision. And I do think that we need to revise the treaty exactly to confront this question, how can we make enlargement and deepening at the same time? For me, there are very clear reasons why we need to have deepening, first of all. Because we need to have Europe as a sovereign entity, able to decide and act on the choices democratically adopted by its citizens. As simple as that. And so far, we don't have these conditions for effective decision and action. In the defense front, in the energy front, in the foreign affairs, because even now, Europe depends a lot on NATO, as you can see during the Ukraine war. From my viewpoint, it would be a mistake to have a world where we have Russia fully aligned with China against the West. This is not in our interest as Europeans. If you want to have a European foreign affairs policy, we need to act across the board, across the world, to build coalitions in such a way that we prevent this risk. Because if we have this, we have a total divide of global governance. This is typically European affairs policy, should be, seems to. There is a second reason, is because we are in the front and inventing a new development model. The one we know, the green, the digital, but we also want to provide this to everybody. So this means that social cohesion should be based on a new concept introduced by Maastricht Treaty, but with a poor content, which is citizenship. From my viewpoint, if there is a key word to define the new phase of the European project, it is citizenship. With the different dimensions, fundamental rights, political rights, social rights, digital rights, and obligations. Yes, because citizenship is about, yes, you're completely right, rights and duties, including on taxation. So we should be prepared to discuss this. But then the problem is, if we have our own ambition to become a European sovereign entity, to influence the global order, to live the way we want to live, the problem is, look, we don't have the means. We miss the means. We miss the financial means and the political means. And this is a central reason why we also need to address treaty changes. Stronger budgetary capacity. We start creating this with the COVID. We should now use it to promote the green transition. We need to have a long-term, large-scale investment capacity. And then the political means. And here I am on the discussion we're having about qualified majority vote. It's not a kind of thought, but I agree with Sandro. Yes, we need to address this issue. Because once we change the rules of the game can also change. And it's easier to decide. I must say that when it comes foreign affairs policy, probably we need to go to a special kind of qualified majority vote. Not exactly the same we are using in other policy fields. We are working with the experts on constitutional law to define exactly the shape of this rule, but I do think that we cannot afford to have our foreign affairs policy blocked by one or two countries. This is unsustainable. So we need to change this. Nevertheless, I also agree with Kalypso when she says, but underlying this, we need to undertake a more profound work on building common strategic culture, common identity, common vision of the world, in spite of our differences, which are there and which will remain there. Now, my point about your question, the enlargement, and your proposal of the clusters, to check with the Amato. I agree, basically, we should be open to different clusters. Nevertheless, in a certain moment, we can start understanding there is a more precise geometry when we look to these clusters. And from my viewpoint, I think we can see basically 4 different circles, 4. 2 inside the European Union and 2 outside the European Union. Basically, I'm making a simplification, okay, for us to see the big trends. Inside the European Union, we have, and probably will need to go on having, 2 circles, one composed by those who really want to go to deepening faster on external action, on defense, on energy, on Eurozone, everything we know about, and the others which are still hesitating. But of course, we are open for them to join whenever they want. They are members of the European Union. Okay, that's why I'm speaking about 2 circles inside the European Union. And then I think outside the European Union, we'll probably need to have also 2 circles. A first circle composed by those who would like to become members, which is the case of Western Balkans, which is the case of Ukraine. And I think we should confirm this possibility. We must confirm this possibility, but also by saying, look, nevertheless, you should know this is a demanding process of internal reform, of internal preparation. This is not something to happen overnight, because this means for you to adapt to the single market, to take part of our networks, to adapt all the governance structures to align with our basic values. So all this takes time. But I do think that we should offer this possibility. And then we have a last circle of those who are very far away from reaching these criteria, or those who really don't want, which is probably the case of UK, the current situation, but which could be part of these second. And like that, I think we could move. But I have a last question addressed also by some colleagues is, and if we start preparing treaty change, how can we make sure this will not be killed as the constitutional treaty was? Look, the solution I'd like to suggest here, in fact, I think there are two possible tracks. One is to be very pragmatic now and to come to a very short list of treaty changes, which are really the ones we require not to be paralyzed. This is one possibility. This is probably the best way to find a possible consensus between the European Parliament and the European Council, because as we know in the European Council, the majority will not be easy. Nevertheless, coming back to our previous discussion, the previous convention and all the work done to prepare the Lisbon Treaty, in fact, there is a more elegant solution which could facilitate referendum if we need to go to referendum. In some countries we do need, which will have not one treaty, but in fact two. We already have, but this is a consistent. My idea is much simpler, is to have a very simple document with the basic principles about European citizenship, the basic rules of the European Union, the basic rules of European institutions. That's all. And then to have a second document, much more detailed, covering all the policies, the nitty-gritty of European Union institutions. Example, all the part we have now with external action should move to the second document. Because the reason this is the first document now is because of our operation to rescue the constitutional treaty. Why I'm saying that? Because in this situation, if we go to a referendum, the only thing to be exposed to referendum is the first document. Something easy to be understood by citizens, because the current documents are not easy at all. So, look, I'm just suggesting this for us to start thinking. But look, this is why that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. We have less than 15 minutes left. I would like to have a quick second round of question and answer, and then the conclusion from Francesco, but let's see if there is some suggestions or questions from the audience. Yes, please.
Thank you. Peter Hefler, Martin Center in Brussels. After the conference in Europe, we had the discussion on the role of political parties. Because, Kalypso, as you mentioned, there might be other forms of democratic engagement from referendum to other sorts, but I still believe that parties play an important role, and we should not forget, also what you mentioned, I think in your third point, Francesco, that there are structures on the ground which can't be simply replaced, maybe modified, but I think more thoughts on that or some ideas I would be very much interested in. Thank you.
So Robert Tyler from New Direction. So I've got a bit of a weight on my shoulder as being the only representative of the conservative movement here. Obviously, I have 30 or 40.
Could you speak a bit louder, please?
Sorry, have 30 or 40 different things that came up in my mind whilst listening to this, but I'll narrow it down to 3 very small ones, which is you speak of the use of referenda. Well, in my own country, we had a referenda on membership of the European Union, and ultimately it went that we decided to leave. And part of that comes into a second point, which is about treaty change, which is that at no point during the renegotiation of Britain's membership did any member state ever suggest that perhaps the answer was to reopen the treaties and work out some kind of a compromise that would allow the United Kingdom to stay. And my third point that ties into this is the fact that a lot of what has been said so far has focused on how you bring power up the structure rather than how you bring it back down towards a local or regional level, which ultimately, had that been the case in 2015 during the renegotiation, I'm certain that the Brexit referendum would have gone a different way.
Over here. Because it's fast.
Sure. Two very short questions. The first, no member state will accept to be downgraded. So how do we arrange the various clusters in a way that we keep the flexibility like we have now, even if people forget, because we have Schengen, we have the Euro area and so on, which have different kind of memberships. So how do we arrange this flexibility around cluster within a formally single membership? Because it's difficult to think that member state will accept a downgrade. The second issue is about referenda again. In some countries, they are compulsory. In some countries, they are politically necessary, like in France. After Maastricht and the Constitutional Treaty, it's impossible not to have it there. And I think that we should go for a European referenda, because if we have a national referenda in France, this will only become a referenda against Macron, like it happened in 2005 against Chirac and in 1992. So while in a European referenda, it's clear that it's not about your government, your president, but it's about if your country will remain part of the European project or not. And this is also one of the requests of the Conference on the Future of Europe, to have European referenda. And I think that the ratification should go through European referendum. This is the most democratic way, and the only one which has a legitimacy that allows us to overcome unanimity at the same time. Thanks.
I hope we will have time to answer all these questions because it's a bit late.
I hope so as well. Francesco, for you, yeah, you mentioned the possibility to introduce a divorce. Recall in the 70s in Italy, and when I was very young, I participated in the campaign for the divorce, and I'm proud of that. But now, speaking about the union, speaking about the monetary union, I think that if you introduce just the words that it's possible to leave, we can create a chaos in financial markets, because you reintroduce a redenomination risk, which is already there, and which Mr. Draghi partially offset with whatever it takes. So probably I haven't understood correctly. If this is the case, I'm sorry, but be careful. Thank you.
And then I will add the question, what is the difference between this divorce and the Article 50 triggered by the UK? Because at the moment there is the possibility to leave. So, but let's finish the questions.
So just a few comments, because it was very rich what to say. The first one, if you look to the conclusion of the Conference on the Future of Europe, that I agree has been in the condition a largely success. 3/4 of the conclusion, grosso modo, are suggestions and demands that could be done in the framework of the acting treaty, are demanding for doing better what is already done, or doing new things, but in the framework of the power of today. So if you want to take for serious, and I agree with Kalypso, that the more we are moving to concentrate power in new things, the more we have to involve citizens. So I am a little scared that, except the intention of von der Leyen to come back in the State of the Union with concrete proposal to this, This is a little out. So I do expect that all the EU institutions, including mine, ESC, but the Parliament, the Commission, will take this 3/4 recommendation for serious and organizing a follow-up, saying this will be done, this will not be done because it is impossible, this will be done in 1 year. That for me is crucial, although we will destroy all these wants and desire to have citizens on board. The second one is reform. I do think we need the reform. I have to take the push that the Parliament has already taken very seriously in this first resolution and the second draft that will be approved, I think, in a few weeks. So we have to take, and the momentum is now. I do suggest that we have to make a two-step reform. The first one is the pragmatic one, in a short deadline. Few key reforms that should be launched during the French presidency, concluded with the Spanish presidency, to have a document perhaps not enter into force to use in the European election. This will be the key message, because we need some key changes to face what we need in health, energy, and defense. This is what we need. If we can add also afford some more power to the Parliament that they want and I agree, it will be largely enough, and leave all the others, because it will be too much difficult to arrive in such a short time. And the second step after the election, perhaps taking the idea that the next Parliament should be a sort of constituency, launch this process. You are saying we have to think about all the security and peace space in Europe and all the institutions concerned, OSCE, Council of Europe, and all, and launch another process. We'll take the cluster, we'll take the divorce, we'll take the differentiation, we'll take how to treat all the other. But we need longer time to do this, or we will create too much expectation, no result, and will be a disaster. So that will be my humble suggestion. Thank you.
Well, let's try to have a quick round of answers with the television timing, 1 minute 30 or 2 minutes each. Kalypso, Nicolaidis, please.
Bullet points. Yes, Luca, I summarize what you just said by we have to walk with 2 legs. So it's another story of obsession. Yes, we will need treaty change, but there's so much we can do without treaty change. The results of treaty change would take, or convention would take about 5 years, we calculated. So let's do both. And including what Maria so rightly suggested, in fact, EU on having 2 documents. EUI 20 years ago, the previous exercise where we were all very present, that proposed such a text. So let's do it, absolutely. But if we do that, there are things that need to change. So the Conference on the Future of Europe was a beautiful experiment. I'm very supportive, but things need to be done differently if we have more democracy in various ways. So the question about parties, there was no party presence, whereas actually in Citizens' Assembly, there should be agonistic politics and differences and what does the left think and the right and different people. But it was all boring experts who just were very technical, and the politics of it all kind of disappeared. So parties need to be integral part of this story. Referenda, yes, but let's look at our Swiss colleagues or, around the world. Europe needs to reverse the gaze, reverse the democratic gaze, and learn from what is happening outside Europe, instead of always saying, hey, world, we're doing things beautifully. Just look at how we're doing things. And one of the ways in which we need to do that is to see how good referenda are done with all the preconditions of debates. And there's much to say. We studied that at EUI. We talked with Francisco about this. So referenda, yes, but under certain condition. And in fact, preceded by Citizens' Assembly, like in the Irish, but you had a referenda on abortion, on gay marriage, but it was preceded by a whole debate and involving, that's the other question, local, from my British friends, co-compatriot, preceded by involvement at all levels, and including, isn't this a strange EU, where 80% of our population lives in cities and towns, and yet they have almost no voice in European integration. So the role of cities, absolutely. And I kind of agree with your counterfactual that if we'd had some of this at pre-Brexit, perhaps the result would be different and some of us would be much happier. Now, and that also means democracy, decentralized democratic landscape is an answer also to flexibility, Roberto, and no member states being downgraded. So we have a whole project against, in fact, it's an EU-funded Horizon project on differentiated integration, which is on dominance and democracy and differentiation. So yes, differentiate. I like Maria's 4 circles, but there are other versions. There is also that, 7 unions, etc. There are visions of how this should be done. But the key sine qua non for all of them is that if you're not in the core circles, you should still be part of this process without being dominated by those who are more in. And there are many ways to do this in all sorts of other regarding ways. The Swiss are very keen on this, and the Brits to this day. So there's much to say about that. And all of the condition of possibility then on this have to do with, yes, the digital. I did want to add to Maria and to commenting on the concept paper, because to me, one of the most striking sentence was in your paper, Francisco, is the 100 companies today, top digital company, none of them is European, because we let others gobble them up. We need to review competition policy if we're going to do something on digital, because our new coal and steel is data and trust. And our young people know that, and we need to be just on that. And social justice, and let me also say that when we make statements about Europe, we need to kind of bring out the paradoxes and the tensions. And so, Maria, you talked about citizenship, and I agree. But if we talk about, you also talked about justice or social issues, but let's call it social justice. Francisco Frati said it very well also at the beginning. When we talk about the long-term future-proofing everything we do in the EU, then it's social justice at a global level, because the most vulnerable are not on this continent. However many vulnerable people we have on this continent, there are elsewhere. And if we're going to really be global, then we need to speak about social justice globally. And that also means that our exclusive notion of citizenship are problematic. So yes, I'm all with you on citizenship, but let's think about how do you do inclusive citizenship. And final point that I think is so important, yes, to budgetary capacity, next generation fund writ large, absolutely. But if we do that, we need to make it much more radically transparent. I call this the Democratic Panopticon. We need the citizens to be able to access on the web every penny that the EU spent in their name. And that's pretty complicated, actually. And not all citizens will do it, but enough will do it that we will have a better democracy. And that to end on Emmanuel, because Sandro, you're going to speak after me, and you don't have to choose between your Emmanuels. You can have two loves in life. You've got both. But let's not forget that Emmanuel, the older one, talked about process cosmopolitanism, and he talked about cosmopolitan law. That was the key to Kantianism. And what is cosmopolitan law? It's a story about how we treat foreigners on our soul. That's what we do. That's what cosmopolitan law is about. And that means that we need to rethink how we do this, including refugees. So on that note.
A lot to do, actually. Sandro, please.
Okay, 4 points on political parties. I think we have a working group, so I will take the time later. Well, you all, there is a paradox in this discussion also, because you all talk about digital, very good, but you don't mention that we have approved the 2 historical regulations in Europe on digital issues. Digital Services Act and Digital Market Act. Digital Market Act is the new competition law on digital issues, done, tick the box. The Digital Services Act is the new European approach, the first attempt in the world to try to address with the future-proof regulation the issue of online platform, online marketplaces, know your business customer principle, protection of your right as consumers, fight against disinformation, new obligation for moderation for the very large online platform, sanction, new mechanism of coordination between the different digital coordinators. This is what we are doing. And I can tell you that is going to work. And I can tell you also that is going to be taken as a model in the second market in the world, which is not the EU. The EU is the first market in the world. The second market in the world is the USA. And I'm sure that when the big tech will have, and are starting already to adapt to our model, to our parameters, conceived around our principle and our objectives, they will have a firm interest also in asking the same kind of approach in the US. So, I mean, I agree there are many things to do, many things to change in Europe, but also, I mean, let's underline what Europe is doing. And this is a major step ahead. Each of us has his own or her own coal and steel. My coal and steel, Kalypso, are green and digital. In my view, this is the coal and steel of the new European integration starting from the external market. And I think that what we are doing on the Green Deal and what we are going to do on the digital transformation are going to be the pillar of the new European single market today and in the future. It is clear that we have to put also not only rules, but also investment. So I fully agree with the fact that, I mean, we have to work out a sort of permanent next generation EU, the same model, the same, I mean, same instrument with the common bond and with all resources to finance really in the medium long term this. But this is our core and steel. And we are there because where Europe exists, Europe provides answer. And on the single market, Europe exists and is providing answer on the digital issues. Local and regional levels, I cannot agree with you more. We need to animate the debate politically. Again, I agree with you. Politically, we have to animate the debate on Europe and the European policies at local level and at regional level. For example, in the conference, the Committee of the Region has proposed to appoint at local level, the mayor should appoint at local level a sort of Europe Councillor, a member of the town hall, which is there also to animate the debate on what Europe means and what that city wants from Europe. On that, I agree with you. I don't agree with you when you say that this kind of approach would have saved us from Brexit. Because let me be frank, if you spend all the political elite 30 years in doing Euro bashing from Monday to Saturday, and then one day on Sunday, you wake up and you ask to the same people, do you want to stay in the EU or do you want to leave? It is very likely that those people will choose to leave and not to stay. So I think that the responsibility on Brexit certainly also rely on the European Union, but the major responsibility on Brexit rely on the fact that for 30 years, all the parties, with some exception of one, but have done Euro bashing in UK. And the result of Euro bashing has been this decision. I profoundly regret what has happened. And we had very doubt when David Cameron told us about the Brexit referendum. I was in government. And we did exactly what the UK government was asking to do, to prepare the referendum. I mean, it came from a long time. It came from a long journey, that decision and that debate. This is what I think may default in the EU, but the referendum was the outcome of a, unfortunately, anti-European historical process and anti-European attitude in most of the country. Last point on the group of countries, Roberto Castaldi. There again, it must be open and must be flexible, but it will work because each time that a group of countries take the lead and go ahead, those who at the beginning try to resist, they rush to join later. And you have seen it with the European Economic Community. We were 6, we are 27. If we had to wait at the time that everybody agreed, we would never got the Treaty of Paris, we never got the Treaty of Rome. So already that was a group of countries. You have seen it with Schengen, where even Norway, I mean, which is not a member of the EU. You have seen it with the Eurozone. You have seen it with defense. To me, it's a very beginning. I agree with Marta Su was saying also about the strategic compass. But in defense, at the beginning, when we decided to go ahead with the enhanced cooperation, there were a lot of reluctance. Now, I think that 25 out of 27 member states participate to the enhanced cooperation with a specific project, industrial project in defense. So that will be the dynamic. And there again, my point, when it is possible that a group of countries move ahead, the whole club will change attitude and will try to join. When each member of the club know that they can say no, he will do what is happening now, and many people will hide behind the one who say no, because it is clear that it's not only Orban who doesn't want to sanction Russia on petrol and then on gas. It is clear that it's not only Orban. But the fact that there is a veto and we let Orban to say no, we let also the possibility to all the others to do their own business and to hide behind the veto of Orban. This is a system that we have to break up.
Thank you, Mrs. Gozi. I just would like to add that this blame game to Europe is not only a prerogative of the UK. And so a referenda also in Italy could be a bit tricky, I think. But who knows?
I fully agree, and I don't go on the personal side of the anti-European European in Italy, because in 2019 I saw directly a very good demonstration.
Who knows? Final remarks, Maria Joao Rodrigues and then Francesco.
Well, I have two remarks, one on the political strategy and another one on vision and architecture, let's say. And I think this is a privilege to have this gathering of people, and also the fact for the first time we have the European political foundations, which are new creatures of the political system, but quite promising and influential ones, because they are connected to the entire political system and across the continent. I really hope that we can start building a pro-European consensus on the political method to deal with this situation and where we want to go to on the longer term. On the political methods, to be very brief, I agree with remarks by the Luca Jair by saying, let's make this clear. First thing, the Conference on the Future of Europe deliver a good set of recommendations, and we should take this seriously. And in fact, many of them are feasible under the current treaty. So we need to have a plan to address this seriously. That said, there are other measures which are not feasible under current treaties, and we need to identify precisely which ones. And then we need, I believe, to be pragmatic. What is at stake now is to have an agreement between the European Parliament and the European Council to open this possibility, and for this we need to have a limited list. And then, with more time, yes, we should go to a more rational and, in fact, useful structure of our treaties, easy to be understood by citizens. Because the treaties we have, they are not easy to be understood. So it's much better to have one single document, the basic principles, and then the second one with more detail. So this is my point about political methods, and I do hope that we can have a pro-European consensus emerging about this. My second point is in fact about architecture, because I've also been inspired by the Siena Place as a beautiful venue for architecture and long-term thinking. Look, let me be clear about comparative federalism, because we have a lot of exercises. We're comparing the European model with the American one and other federal models in the world. From my viewpoint, the European model is a sui generis model and will always remain a sui generis model. It's a mistake to transfer simplistically ideas from the United States or whoever the model. First of all, because the European model is multi-level governance. All the levels have a role to play: the local, the national, the European, and if we compare to two basic types, the American and the German, which are very different, the American are strong on federal action and weak on converging the states, making to make the American states to converge. They accept more disparity. I'm making a caricature. The German model is weaker on the federal action but is powerful on making the lenders to converge. What should happen in the European Union? In the current situation where we should move to a new stage of European integration, we should build up the instruments to be stronger on European action, defense, foreign affairs, energy union, health union, as examples, while we keep also internal cohesion and based on citizenship. So this is what is specific to the European Union. And last point of architecture, but of a global governance. I really think this is in our interest as Europeans to make our utmost to prevent a split, a fracture, a global governance. An order led by the United States, another order led by China. We have, the risk is there, clearly. We have, I would say, the last years to prevent this. And frankly, I prefer to assume that so far we have a multipolar world, different poles, different balance of powers. And the way to frame this in the right direction is to build up a more effective multilateral system to make everybody work to address common challenges, because there are a lot of common challenges in spite of the differences. And again, the European Union can be a key player of this shaping of the global world. So these are two pieces about architecture.
Thank you. Francesco, enough
Yeah.
material to
Okay.
enrich the concept paper.
Well, first of all, I am very happy because we are even having different ideas and the people who are changing their mind. I have five actually, very short points. Number one, on divorce, talking about the changing mind. Gregorio convinced me that there are some forms of unions, of a cluster of integration to which divorce should not apply. However, I still think that what Stephen said this morning, it's very true, and it is something. It probably is the problem that we have. We cannot have one of the 27 brothers and sisters saying, no, I do not want to talk with you, and the other 26 going to the brother and say, look, how much money should I pay you for, so that you are a little bit a better guy, no? And you cannot go ahead like that, no? So we need to have a divorce, by the way, in not on monetary union, Gregorio, otherwise, but we need to have a mechanism for having a divorce in both ways, a member states deciding that he cannot go on any longer, or the others asking, it's just a fact of life, I think. Number one and number two on referenda, just to give you some numbers that I mentioned in my last op-ed for Euractiv. Out of 64 referenda that we had on European Union integration in the last, I think, 50 years, the first was in Denmark in 1972. European Union integration won 59 times out of 64. It's true that we lost the Brexit and the referenda in France and in Netherlands. By the way, two founding members, part of the core, which very much convinced Giuliano Amato that the treaty was to be written in a way so that the citizen could not understand it. So there were some big exceptions, but most of majority of the referenda were won by the European Union integration. And by the way, even if we include Switzerland and Greenland and North Macedonia that even had referenda on European Union integration, even in Switzerland, most of the referenda on the European Union integration were won. It's 84 referenda, 72 were won by the European Union integration. The track record is quite good on referenda. Number three, on digital. On digital, it's very true what Maria said, which is a sign of flexibility. There was no provision for the European Union to have digital policies, and yet we had the digital policies. I would very much be happy, however, Sandro, to join the working group 1 on digital policies, because to have, we count 11 regulations on digital policies. Probably it is too much. I would even get rid of the word probably. It's too much. And one of the reasons why we have Spotify as the biggest European digital platform, which is whose market value is $20 billion, which is half of Twitter, which is the poor, brother of the big. It is also because we have a GDPR, which is probably the best regulation, which has got some problems. But probably there is too much of bureaucracy. But this is one of the working group. Number 4, and I'm finishing, talking about women and the animal on the moon, since we have talked so badly about Russian, I want to remind that the very first human being launched in the space was a dog, Laika, and the first woman, and after Yuri Gagarin, it was Valentina Tereskova. And number 5, we need to split in working groups. So just to give you some logistic numbers.
Francesco, I'm here. Okay.
Yeah, you wanna. Okay.
No, I have in the list some logistic info for the working group. The working group 1, in collaboration with ELF, will be upstairs in Sala Palio. The working group 2 with the Martin Center will be in Sala Caratelli. The working group 3 of Vision will be upstairs, always in Sala Veranda. The working group 4 with the University of Siena will be here. If someone want to see the room before, I will.
And we are a little bit more or less balanced in terms of number, aren't we?
Yes, they are pretty the same.
We have more or less 15 people for each
working group. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you for attending.
Okay,
Thank you for your attention. Have a pleasant rest of the